Good evening, you're watching India First. Pakistan claims it wants dialogue with India and it's willing to have a dialogue on every issue including terror and water. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh today challenged Pakistan, saying if you're serious about dialogue, hand over the masterminds of 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks and Pulwama terror attacks, Hafiz Saeed and that Maulana of terror, Masood Azhar. The ball now is squarely in Pakistan's court.
बात होगी तो आतंकवाद पर होगी, बात होगी तो पाक ऑक्युपाइड कश्मीर पर होगी.
India's ultimatum to terroristan.
अगर पाकिस्तान बातचीत को लेकर गंभीर है तो उसे हाफिज सईद और मसूद अजहर जैसे आतंकवादियों को भारत को सुपर्द करना चाहिए.
Hand over Hafiz Saeed and Masood Azhar.
इंशाअल्लाह हम ये जंग लड़ेंगे.
Pakistan protects the terror masterminds. India draws the red line. Will Pakistan hand over Hafiz Saeed and Masood Azhar? That's our top focus on India First. Hafiz Saeed and Masood Azhar, these are the real field marshals of Pakistan. Field Marshal Hafiz Saeed and Field Marshal Masood Azhar. Because army generals come and go, these terror masterminds, they remain. And for far too long, India has permitted Pakistan to punch far above its weight. It's Prime Minister Narendra Modi who's made it very clear dialogue would only be about taking back Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir and also on terror. Shahbaz Sharif, after that unbearable pain that he's suffering of 13 Pakistan Air Force bases and radar stations being targeted after 9 terror camps, including the ones at Muridke and Bahawalpur being hit, is now talking about peace and dialogue. But does Pakistan come with a clean hand? Will Pakistan hand over Field Marshal Hafiz Saeed and Masood Azhar? We discuss. I'm Gaurav Sawant. As always, let's get started with the headlines on India First. Prime Minister Narendra Modi reiterates Operation Sindoor is still not over, says India will drag every Pakistani terrorist out of their hideout. Prime Minister Modi meets Pahalgam victim Shubham Dwivedi's family in Kanpur. Union Home Minister Amit Shah meets victims of Pakistani shelling in Poonch, visits the Gurdwara that was hit along the line of control. Amit Shah says Pakistan is a coward that attacked innocents after its terror bases were demolished by India. Politics escalates over Operation Sindoor. Telangana Chief Minister Revanth Reddy asks how many Rafale fighter jets were downed by Pakistan. BJP hits back, says Congress sympathizes with Pakistan. In a historic first, 17 women cadets graduate from the National Defence Academy. Big turning point for gender equality and national defence. India's GDP growth slows to 6.5 in February 2025. January to March quarter growth beats estimates at 7.5%. So India made one thing very clear. Terror and talks cannot happen simultaneously. They don't go hand in hand. Neither will blood and water flow together. These are two red lines India has drawn for Pakistan. Now there is the clear red line on terror. Union Defense Minister Rajnath Singh today insisted if Pakistan is serious about talks with India, if Pakistan is serious about dialogue, then the masterminds of 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks and the Pahalgam terror attacks, along with Pulwama, Hafiz Saeed and Masood Azhar, should be handed over to India. Now, he insists that these are global UN designated terrorists. They're globally designated as terrorists, but they get patronage in Pakistan. The big question is, will these Nishane Pakistan or Nishane Terroristan be handed over to India?
बात होगी तो आतंकवाद पर होगी, बात होगी तो पाक ऑक्युपाइड कश्मीर पर होगी.
Defence Minister Rajnath Singh once again makes it unequivocally clear. India will only engage in dialogue with Pakistan on two issues: terrorism and return of Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Rajnath Singh was speaking from INS Vikrant, India's first indigenously built aircraft carrier. The visit comes weeks after the Indian Navy's Strategic Carrier Battle Group, led by Vikrant, played a decisive role in Operation Sindoor.
साथियों, इस पूरे इंटीग्रेटेड ऑपरेशन में नौसेना की भूमिका बहुत ही गौरवशाली रही है. ऑपरेशन सिंदूर के दौरान जब वायुसेना ने पाकिस्तान की धरती पर आतंक के अड्डों को ध्वस्त किया, तब अरब सागर में आपकी आक्रामक तैनाती, बेजोड़ मैरीटाइम डोमेन अवेयरनेस और समुद्री वर्चस्व ने पाकिस्तानी नेवी को उसके ही तटों के पास सीमित कर दिया. विक्रांत कैरियर बैटल ग्रुप की फोर्सफुल एक्शन ने भी हमारे इरादे और क्षमता का प्रभावी संकेत दिया है.
What truly grabbed eyeballs was his direct message to India's rogue neighbor.
अगर पाकिस्तान ने फिर वही गलती की, यानी पाकिस्तान ने फिर वही गलती की, तो भारत का उत्तर और भी कठोर होगा और इस बार उसे संभलने का मौका भी नहीं मिलेगा.
He further told the aggressor nation to stop playing the victim card and demanded that Pakistan hand over UN designated terrorist Hafiz Saeed and Masood Azhar to India.
अगर पाकिस्तान बातचीत को लेकर गंभीर है, तो उसे हाफिज सईद और मसूद अजहर जैसे आतंकवादियों को भारत को सुपुर्द करना चाहिए, ताकि उनके साथ भी इंसाफ किया जा सके. उनके साथ का इंसाफ कैसा होना चाहिए, यह मुझे बताने की जरूरत नहीं है.
Lashkar-e-Taiba chief Hafiz Saeed was the mastermind of the 2000 Chitti Singhpura massacre, the 2001 parliament attack and the 2006 Mumbai serial train blast. He also orchestrated the 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks that took 166 innocent lives. One of the attackers, Ajmal Kasab, was caught alive and later executed in 2012. Hafiz Saeed's Lashkar was also behind the Pahalgam massacre, where 25 tourists were killed solely on the basis of religion and a local was killed for fighting the terrorist. On the other hand, Jaish-e-Mohammed chief Masood Azhar is responsible for the 2001 parliament attack, the Pathankot air base attack and the Pulwama terror attack of 2019, where a suicide bomber targeted a CRPF convoy, resulting in the deaths of 40 personnel. Both these UN-designated terrorists have repeatedly attacked India under the protection and patronage of Pakistan. India has sent a clear and uncompromising message, both to the world and to Pakistan, that any act of terror will be met with a decisive response.
जो दुश्मन गिड़गिड़ा रहा था, वो किसी धोखे में न रहे. ऑपरेशन सिंदूर अभी खत्म नहीं हुआ है.
Operations like Sindoor will become the norm, not the exception. Will Pakistan fall in line, or will it resort to its old terror games again? Bureau Report, India Today.
Conventional wisdom is you never trust Pakistan. In fact, General N.C. Vij, former Chief of Army Staff, will join us in about 25 minutes from now, and he will explain why, in his long military experience, it's always better never to trust Pakistan. But then Pakistan's current Prime Minister, Shahbaz Sharif, he says for peace, they want dialogue and they're willing to talk terror, water, and other issues that will lead to stability. So 3 issues he talks about: water, trade, and terror. But what's India saying? Hand over Hafiz Saeed and Masood Azhar. That's the first thing that India expects Pakistan to do. But the big question is, will Pakistan's Army Chief Asim Munir hand over his crown jewels to India? Joining me on India First is Tilak Devashar, former member of the National Security Advisory Board. He's an author of multiple books on Pakistan and was Special Secretary in RAW. General Satish Dua, former Kashmir Corps Commander, former Chief of Integrated Defence Staff, and Dr. Shalini Chawla is a Distinguished Fellow at the Centre for Air Pass Studies. And Mr. Tilak Devashar, if I could, Hafiz Saeed and Masood Azhar, they are actually Nishane Pakistan. I mean, they symbolize Pakistan. They're the pride of Pakistan Army. Will Pakistan Army ever hand over their crown jewels to India? So I think you're on mute. Request you to unmute yourself. Go on, sir.
I'm so sorry. Thank you for having me on the show, and a good evening to my fellow panelists. The short answer to your question is certainly no. And I'll just draw your attention to a function that was held 2 days ago, in which the terrorists of Pakistan, including the deputy leader of the Lashkar and the Speaker of the Punjab Assembly, were in full display addressing, spewing venom against India. If the Pakistan Army allows a function like that to take place openly, so soon after Operation Sindoor, you can well imagine what their attitude, the brazenness with which this was on display. So you can imagine what their reaction will be about handing over Hafiz Saeed and Masood Azhar. And in fact, the statement that Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif made, I mean, you could see from his body language that he himself was not convinced of what he was saying or talking about peace to India. The broken voice, the almost crying tone, as if he was being forced to say that. So they are not serious at all. You cannot trust Pakistan. You cannot trust any proposal coming out of Pakistan. And India has made it very clear that we'll talk on water when you stop terrorism. And if a conversation is to be held, it'll only going to be on POK and on terrorism. And the defense minister has now further clarified that we can talk to you on terrorism, provided you hand over these two masterminds to us. I don't see this going anywhere because Pakistan is not serious.
Okay, General Dua, there's an old saying in Hindi, na Norman tel hoga, na Radha nachegi. So is this an impossible condition for Pakistan to meet? And there will be no forward movement. Of course, it's impossible from the Pakistani perspective. You and I as Indians, I mean, it's the most basic thing we would expect from a civilized neighbor to hand over terrorists on their soil. But from the Pakistani perspective, it's almost as if Rajnath Singh has asked for both General Asim Munir's kidneys.
I think the Defense Minister, Mr. Rajnath Singh, has made a very valid and a pertinent point, because we said Indus Water Treaty is suspended until Pakistan abjures violence, terrorist violence. So where does that leave them? So if they want water, they have to talk to us with some proof moving forward, moving ahead with the issue of terrorist violence. Now, you see, we have seen that in Pakistan, these terrorists are not non-state actors. They are actually instruments of state policy. And the only other thing I'll say is that these terrorist leaders, not only they have the state security, they actually have state honors nowadays. The event that Tilak mentioned, and also the fact that on the funeral of some of the top leaders and relatives of Masood Azhar, the Pakistan Army brass, the chief, everyone was there. So under these conditions, I think it's a very pertinent point being made. I don't know about what, obviously it won't happen like Tilak says, but we have made our bid. If they really want to prove their stand, if they want to show that they are sincere about letting off terrorism as a state policy, they will have to show something. They'll have to wear a sincerity on their sleeve.
Dr. Chawla, Prime Minister Narendra Modi made it very clear that India does not distinguish between state and non-state actors, and especially after the funeral at Bahawalpur and Muridke, and the pictures that you're seeing on your television screen of Talha Saeed, a designated terrorist, Hafiz Abdul Rauf, again a designated terrorist, and political leaders in Pakistan, including the Speaker of the Punjab Provincial Assembly, hugging, sitting together, and we're playing out all those pictures. We'll also play out those funeral pictures. Pakistan Army generals in uniform being there, laying a wreath and being a part of the Namaz-e-Janaza. But in your appreciation, if Pakistan were to even think about handing over Masood Azhar and Hafiz Saeed, wouldn't there be civil war in Pakistan's Punjab province? Or, and as many say, these terrorists are the state in Pakistan.
Thank you, Gaurav. They are the state in Pakistan. Yes, you can say that they are an extension of the Pakistan military, very much part of the state apparatus, where they not only have been conducting terrorism, but also have been fighting elections. They have been given, they are thriving in the mainland of Pakistan. And obviously, they have this big facade of running the social work, which obviously generates a lot of income for them also in the form of donations. So yes, they do have the public support. And what Mr. Deveshir talked about, the celebrations yesterday. So Mr. PM Modi has very clearly said that we will evaluate Pakistan's behavior. And where is that behavior when we have these visuals of these cremations where DG ISPR is reiterating Hafiz Saeed's words on water? So there is very much this, very strong linkage where I don't see Pakistan going against this at all. And if we have to learn our lessons, we should see it. Pakistan, while fighting the war on terror and taken $32 billion of aid from United States, still had Osama bin Laden in the mainland. So I don't think, we need to really think about it, that will Pakistan do it or not? I don't think that's going to change with Pakistan.
For those who are naive, you're absolutely right, ma'am. But for those who are naive and those who believe in Aman ki Asha with Pakistan, and I'm surprised they do, because Pakistan only believes in killing us. Mr. Deveshir, how important are terrorists like Hafiz Saeed and Masood Azhar for the Pakistani state? Now, in the terroristan, Pakistan shouldn't be called anything else. In the terroristan warrant of precedence, do they come before or after Asim Munir?
What an interesting question. In reality, the Pakistan Army will take precedence, but they are not far behind. Masood Azhar and Mr. Saeed, Hafiz Saeed, are not very far behind, because the kind of respect, the kind of protection that they get, the way they are defended, and the way they are escorted around. You see, there are two things which, if you permit me time, Masood Azhar has written a very long book, in fact, 2-volume study on jihad. And even though the conventional wisdom is that jihad can only be declared by the state, he's the guy who came up with this thesis that individuals can also declare jihad. So he was very useful in radicalizing a large number of youth in Pakistan by telling them that you can fight your own jihad. Masood Azhar, because of the ideological underpinnings of the Lashkar, which is Ahle Hadith, they know that they can never compromise with India. You see, Deoband, because it has center in India, there is a feeling that Deobandis will have some sympathy toward India. But Masood Azhar and his Jaish and his Lashkar will never compromise or never have any sympathy for India. So for these ideological reasons, these are the crown jewels of the Pakistan Army. They will never compromise with them. They will never allow India anywhere near these guys, and there's no question of their handing over. So in terms of precedence, they may come just after Asim Munir, but they are extremely important for the Pakistan Army.
So interesting. So if I were to see the warrant of precedence of Terroristan, there's Field Marshal Asim Munir, then there's Field Marshal Hafiz Saeed, and then there's Field Marshal Masood Azhar. Because generals may come and go, General Dua. Generals, of course, in Pakistan, some go only after there's a box of exploding mangoes in the aircraft. But in other instances, they want to stay on as long as they can. But generals may come and go. Field Marshal Hafiz Saeed stays forever. He's almost like Station Commander Lahore. And, Masood Azhar is like Station Commander of Bahawalpur.
Yes, you are right to say what you said. Let me try and put it in another way. The importance of these terrorist leaders that we're discussing today and the vis-a-vis military. When we talk about the Pakistan deep state, who are we talking about? I think what we are talking about is the military, the top terrorist leaders, and surprisingly, I don't think it is the clergy which is anywhere in the deep state. It is the criminals. There is a big mafia of drugs that controls the drug business, and Dawood Ram is one of them, and there are many others. So I think when you talk about the deep state that actually runs the affairs and actually decides what's to be done and what's not to be done, the political veneer is it's a very thinly veiled political veneer. That deep state consists of the military, the terrorist, and the criminal underworld nexus.
And that is the real Pakistan. Everybody else is incidental. Everybody else really doesn't matter, Dr. Chawla. Right now, we are told Pakistan is on edge. Those are reports that are emerging even in media and social media in Pakistan. Mock drills have been announced in India once again, and Pakistan fears additional strikes. But let me play the devil's advocate. Knowing Pakistan's desperation, will they seek to strike India once again through these terrorists, Hafiz Saeed and Masood Azhar, like they have, incidentally, in the past, even when tensions between the two countries were very high?
I think they definitely would seek to. The timing, I'm not saying it would happen now, because I think some time we would see to pass by. But definitely Pakistan would want to kind of reestablish that whole domain that yes, we will conduct the terrorist strike. And the fact that we have managed to dismantle a large infrastructure of terrorists. So definitely will be for the sake of appeasement of these militant leaders also, which you have been talking about. But let me add just a very small point here, Gaurav, to the point about terrorism and will it go or not. I think for Pakistan, the use of terror is very important, whether it is India, Afghanistan, or it is within. You have not seen a single issue which has been resolved within Pakistan peacefully. See how they treat the Baluch, see how they treat the Pathan. So it is use of terror basically is something which is very ingrained in the state policy, and I don't see that moving away, even if they are on the edge in terms of their military or economy. So yes, they would be thinking, but I don't see it happening very soon.
Okay, because Mr. Deveshwar, I want to take your mind back to Operation Parakram and the, after Parliament attack, Pakistan that time feared that Indian Army may strike, and we are told, and General Vij will join us in just a moment, we are told that the army at least twice was on the verge of going inside and punishing Pakistan. But in midst of all of this, Pakistani terrorists attacked the Kaluchak military station, where they massacred over 30 Indian families, including young toddlers and military families. Army officers and Jawans' children were killed during Kaluchak military station attack. They did that after Parliament attack, and we did nothing. Is that still playing on Pakistani mind, or now they realize that there isn't an Atal Bihari Vajpayee or a Manmohan Singh, there is a Narendra Modi?
Certainly. I think they have realized ever since 2016, when we responded to the Uri attack by a surgical strike, they realized that this is a different India. This is an India that has the political will to punish terrorism. And it has the political will to ignore the Pakistan's nuclear bluff. We've done it when we did it in Balakot. And now
Yes.
we've done it decisively. That forget your nuclear weapons, we're not going to be phased by them. And we will hit you where it hurts you most. I mean, the air bases that have been taken off, which housed strategic assets and strategic ammunition, has been taken out. So I think Pakistan is scared that India, A, has the political will to hit us for any terror incident, will continue hitting us, and will attack us irrespective of the. You see, all this while Pakistan's doctrine of terrorism was premised that India will not hit back because of this nuclear blackmail.
Yes.
They painted themselves as an irrational country when it comes to India, and we will use nuclear weapons. You know, that pow pow ke bomb that we
Yes.
had. We have called their bluff. In fact, they have to now go back to the drawing board because the nuclear threat, nuclear blackmail, the nuclear shield, whatever you want to call it, no longer exists. What do
You
they
know,
do
that's
now?
music to my ears. To hear Pakistan is scared is music, because for far too long we've bled, and sadly I've covered some of the worst terror attacks, including Kaluchak, on ground, and it's truly painful. Stay with me for a moment. I have to quickly cut across to Copenhagen. You know, this India's multi-pronged offensive, including the political and diplomatic strikes to expose Pakistan's state-sponsored terror, that's on. And joining me from Copenhagen is Shiv Sena UBT MP and Deputy Leader in the Rajya Sabha, Priyanka Chaturvedi. Priyanka, welcome. You were in Rome just a short while back. You're in Copenhagen now. How is Europe reacting to India's response to Pakistani terror, ma'am?
See, whatever we have met, the people we met, whether it's the think tanks, whether it is the media, whether it is the government officials, whether it is the parliamentarians, they're absolutely unequivocal in support of India and India's right to respond as far as terrorist attacks are concerned. They're also very clear, which is something that we have been saying, that it is time that we held Pakistan accountable. India has been fighting this war over decades. We have been fighting Pakistan over decades. But the real trouble that would be soon hitting their door would be the radicalization and fundamentalist mentality that is coming out of Pakistan.
Yes.
The roots of every terror activities and fundamentalism is emanating out of Pakistan. So they also are concerned about how it will, work out in Europe. So this is
But
something
are
that
they
we've been
waking up? Are they waking up to the
absolutely.
magnitude of the crisis, or do they still think that it's happening in some corner and they are still safe?
No, no, absolutely not. Let me say this very clearly that they do understand the problem of terrorism emanating out of Pakistan. They've also, we have given them ample amount of evidence to show that how Pakistan continuously trains, arms, and also protects terrorists. And let's not forget, right from Osama bin Laden to Hafiz Saeed to JEM to Al Qaeda, everybody has found training camps coming out of Pakistan. So they are very well aware of the threat. The need right now is to prioritize it and to hold Pakistan accountable. So there is a very clear understanding, even amongst the members of parliament, and I'm sure they have their constituencies and their constituents who are concerned about the kind of radicalization that is, erupting out here. So we are very positive, and they have been extremely positive in support
Okay.
of everything that
So
India does
we're
to fight terrorism.
But are these just words of sympathy, or when you say that there is need to hold Pakistan accountable, what are tangible measures that can be taken? Are those also being discussed? For example, sanctions on Pakistan, or are they surprised by the magnitude of Indian response, targeting 9 terror camps and then targeting 13 air bases and radar stations, or are they telling us exercise restraint? Is anyone telling Pakistan stop terror?
No, who do they talk to in Pakistan? Again, for anybody right now, they also understand the facts on ground that there is nobody they can engage with in Pakistan. Pakistan is a military state which is protecting its terrorists, not its civilians. Let's be very clear. They also, let me also put it very categorically, they have no questions as per whatever action that India has taken. They are also very clear that we have been very careful about the strikes that we have done on their terror camps. Again, we have reiterated that these are terror camps designated by the United Nations. It's not like Indians are talking about they being terrorist camps. Murid ke, Muzaffarpur, Muzaffarnagar, etc. All of these are terror camps based out of Bhavalpur, are all terror camps which are designated by United Nations. Also been very clear that lots of these terrorists, whether, again, I shall repeat, 52 terrorists are the ones which are recognized by United Nations as living in Pakistan.
Pakistan.
So
That's
I do
right.
not see any sympathy coming from any of the parliamentarians or people we have met for Pakistan. They also understand the huge challenge that they will be facing sooner or later, something that India has been facing over the decades and India has responded to.
Oh, absolutely. But, you know, so another team, Asaduddin Owaisi, for example, he sought global help in a way to put Pakistan back on the FATF grey list. Is Europe receptive to that idea? You know, you've been speaking to several world leaders, whether in Rome or in Copenhagen, and the next part of you know, your delegation's visit. Are they on the same page on putting them on the FATF grey list or some kind of sanctions on Pakistan?
Absolutely. This is a point we have been making, that the entire global narrative needs to understand, whether it is US, whether it's Europe, whether it is, a Middle East nations, whether it is African nations, all of them will sooner or later face this threat. So we need to hold Pakistan to account. The IMF loans that are given to them, the FATF, grey listing them in FATF is something that we have been putting on the table. And let's not forget, we are sitting in Copenhagen today. Denmark is part of the UNSC right now. Denmark is also going to become the take the chairmanship of the European Union from July 1st onwards. So that is going to be an important narrative that Denmark will probably take forward. And they do understand the challenges that India is facing and Europe is likely to face and is also currently facing. Let's not forget the radicalization that we see in the Western European region is something which is a tangible threat for them as well, and their peaceful coexistence as well.
Oh, absolutely. Priyanka Chaturvedi for joining me here on India Today from Copenhagen. Many thanks. And Europe should actually realize this. I was in London in 2005, the 7/7 London bombing. We were covering that, and all the 7/7 London bombers had trained in Pakistan. They were Pakistani origin British nationals who carried out that terror attack. Wherever there's terror, it's usually traced back to Pakistan, and the world needs to wake up. Joining me now on this India Today special broadcast is General Nirmal Chandra Vij, former Chief of the Army Staff. General Vij was Director General of Military Operations during Op Vijay in Kargil. He was Vice Chief of Army Staff during Op Parakram after the Parliament was attacked in December 2001, and subsequently as Chief of the Army Staff, that's where the line of control fencing had taken place. General, always a privilege to have you on this broadcast. Welcome on India Today, sir.
Thank you very much, Gaurav. It's indeed very sweet of you to get me over to your studio.
General, your appreciation, how things have changed from Op Vijay to Op Parakram, now to Op Sindoor.
A lot has changed. A lot has changed, both in terms of the political will, their doctrine. There's a big doctrinal shift from a strategic restraint now to controlled escalation. Earlier, we were tied down with strategic restraint, like it happened during Kargil, as you know. And militarily also, we have come a long, long way technically. We are far superior to what we were in my years of 2003-04.
So let me take you back to the time when you were Director General of Military Operations during Op Vijay in Kargil. The strategic restraint that you mentioned, the Air Force was told not to cross the line of control, not to hit across. And now, whether it's after Pulwama, when Balakot Air Force went and hit across, or now Op Sindoor, where Air Force and missiles went and hit across, the changes that you notice in terms of technology and in terms of the higher direction of war, you know, if we had done that during Kargil or during 26/11, would that have sent some message to Pakistan not to escalate?
Yes, I think it's a big change, because if strategic restraint was not there and not crossing the line of control was not the criteria, we perhaps wouldn't have gone to Kargil first of all and attacked uphill straight towards the enemy. We would have taken some other areas first and then come to Kargil. So there is a big change on that. Secondly, even you will be surprised, not only the Air Force was not to cross the line of control, even our patrols were not to cross the line of control. So the tactical information which you wanted about the enemy, even that got restricted because of that. So lot changed. The government thinking has changed. And now we have given a very clear message to Pakistan that look, wherever you are, wherever your terrorists are, We will chase them however deep inside Pakistan they may be, or any corner of Pakistan they may be. They will not be left alone. And anytime, at our will, we will go after them.
Sir, in your book, Alone in the Ring, you've mentioned about the problems, that had been faced at that point of time. What can you tell us about the problems that the army faced because of that strategic restraint during Kargil, during Op Parakram, and even, subsequently, like 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks, for example?
You see, I'll take the Kargil first. As I mentioned earlier also in my statement, you do not attack a target uphill. You will come from the top to down, number one. You will not attack a target to which there is only one approach. That becomes very difficult to attack in the mountains. We would have done it much differently tactically, and also even in planning, we perhaps wouldn't have gone to Kargil state. We would have gone to some other target and from there approached Kargil from a flank. That we would have done. During Parakram, unfortunately, the army got ready by middle of January. Actually, twice we returned from the brink. First, when General Padmanabhan, who was the chief, he announced in middle of January that we are ready now for war and we are ready to go in. And we waited for the go-ahead from the government, but the government didn't give a go-ahead. Second time, when Kaluchak camp was attacked, and there were 23 women and children were killed. And that was the time when the entire country was really up in the arms and very, very annoyed. But we didn't get a go-ahead. So these were the limitations of Parakram. As to what the government had in their mind, they didn't share with us, because when the chiefs were told to deploy, they asked as to what is their military aim, which would be a normal question and which stands to logic. And they were told, you first deploy and then we let you know. And unfortunately, that communication never came to us. Maybe the government in their mind had made up their own thought process that it is perhaps not good to stumble into a war just to assuage the public feelings. Maybe, I am guessing, because I don't know for sure.
Yes.
And secondly, there is a statement by Mr. Jaswant Singh, which he wrote in his book, that the biggest problem which he faced was to convince his three chiefs about the value of strategic restraint. Now, that itself is very indicative of their thought process. So, you see, Parakram was an exercise where we deployed in such a big way, where perhaps we missed out a good opportunity to sort out Pakistan once for all.
And in your assessment, we were in a position to sort out Pakistan in 2002. And what does sort out Pakistan mean, sir?
Yeah, sorting out Pakistan means taking those areas which were geographically very important for us and which would have been hurting them all along. And it doesn't mean the entire territorial capture, but certain definitely strategically important areas, take them into our possession so that we can reach out to them anytime which we wanted.
So are you of the opinion that the thinking of Prime Minister Narendra Modi is very different from the thinking of then Prime Minister Manmohan Singh or earlier then Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee? I'm talking about both Parakram and 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks.
It's very difficult for me, and I'm not in a position to comment on the Prime Ministers. But surely they had their own viewpoint, and the governments, when they take a decision, they don't only think what the military thinks. They have many other points to think. In Parakram, I think they were feeling that they were not economically sound enough, and they wanted to project themselves as a responsible power, and a power which could be trusted. And nuclear had just come in. Maybe the nuclear fear was also there. Yes, the government and the Prime Minister, they've taken a very strong stand, no doubt. And that you can make out from each time we have reacted to Pakistani actions. We have gone into this crossing of the Yellow Sea first, which we did. Next time we went to Balakot. Now we have multiplied it 9 times. We attacked 9 targets inside Pakistan, and not only inside Pakistan, POK. We went into Punjab, heartland of Punjab. So there is a difference in our thinking. And it is, I think, also related to our level of preparation and level of our advancement in the armed forces, and also our status in the world.
That's a very interesting point you make. But if I could draw you back into that conversation about the nuclear bogey that Pakistan has, because even during Op Parakram, and especially around the time of Kaluchak, and for the benefit of our viewers, Pakistani terrorists dressed in military fatigues attacked a military station near Jammu called Kaluchak. They entered that military station and they massacred Indian Army families. I've covered Kaluchak and it was heartbreaking. Little children were killed by Pakistani terrorists, and everyone thought that India will punish Pakistan. But then Pakistan, it did some nuclear-capable missile tests, and we did not go in. Was that the fear, Pakistan's nuclear bogey, General Vij?
Yes, the nuclear bogey stayed with us. But now the Prime Minister in his doctrine has made it very clear that your nuclear bluff has been called and we will not accept it. But having said that, I will also say that this is up to a certain level. If you don't cross their red lines, perceived red lines, I do not know, they have not been defined, but their General Kidwai had once mentioned, who was the director SPD, DG
Yes.
SPD, that there are 4 lines: territorial loss, the economic strangulation, destruction of their forces, and political destabilization. If we don't cross those lines, it is okay, we can fight up to that. So keep the threshold at that level where they are not constrained into survival mode. If we do that, I think we should go ahead like we have done now. And the Prime Minister has rightly called that your nuclear bluff will not be accepted.
Sir, I also want to now draw you back to the time when you were Director General of Military Operations. During the Kargil war, the Americans, the Pakistanis, I'm told, sought American intervention, and there was a ceasefire, and you met your Pakistani counterpart. I was reporting from Kargil that time, and that was really big. What was your meeting with the Pakistani DGMO like? Can you describe to us what are these DGMO level talks like?
Gaurav, it was, I've never been to Pakistan, and now do I have any intention, but it was a good exposure for me to talk to the Pakistani DGMO, who was quite a suave gentleman. But having said that, but I will lay emphasis on, once I asked him during our Tuesday conversations as to where was he missing in the previous week's conversation. And his reply was, हमारे बच्चे आए हुए थे तो अब उनकी तफरी में बिजी थे. So I told him, आपके बच्चे तो हमारे पास आए हुए हैं, तो आप क्यों उनकी तफरी में बिजी है, हम उनकी देखभाल करेंगे. So telling lies is part of their ecosystem and their ethos. I'll now take you to the DGMO meeting, which was held in Khasa, next to Amritsar, a small town, on our side of the border. And during the conference, I asked him 2 questions. I said, look, throughout our discussions, you've been telling me these are Kashmiri freedom fighters. How will you control their movement now? Because you are supposed to control their movement backward. If they are Kashmiri freedom fighters, how are you in touch with them? So, to which he had no reply, he kept quiet, obviously. But they were obviously controlling them, and these were their people, NLI people, and the other people were only as voters and all that being used. Secondly, I told him, okay, look, I am carrying the entire video photographs of all your people who've been killed and whom we have given ceremonial funeral, proper burials. And you will like to see that and record it. It will be good for the parents of those children who have died. And he said, no, hamare to hai nahi wo. Then I said, okay, if they are not yours, perfectly all right. But during the tea break, he took me to one side and said, sir, kyun sharminda kar rahe ho? Aap de dijiye, aapko bhi malum hai ki sach kya hai. So that is how the Pakistanis are. And I'll give you one more example if you permit me.
Go on, sir.
After we took point 5140, I told him, okay, look, we have got a lot of your maps and identity discs and all that, which are marked. Maps are marked with the objectives. So what do you say to that? His only reply was, one word reply, amak, कि बेवकूफ हैं, वो क्यों उन्होंने ऐसे किया? So they know what is the truth, but they will not tell the truth. That is the way they are built. And to my mind, Pakistanis are very incorrigible, keeping India destabilized, keeping India in, always occupied with the strategy of 1,000 cuts is their very main motive. And also perhaps that is one factor which keeps their country united.
And tell me this, sir, would you trust the Pakistanis, their army or their government, if they were to say that we will not spread terror in India? Can you trust a Pakistani?
No, I will not. I will not trust them under any circumstances, because I still remember this conversation with Dr. Manmohan Singh when that government came into power. They were wanting to, as India has always desired, to settle into some kind of a peace settlement with Pakistan. They wanted to have a pullback from Siachen up to certain level. It's in terms of kilometers, that we go back 5 kilometers, they go back 5 kilometers. I told him, I said, sir, it's not possible, because 5 kilometers on our side to be covered will take us more than a day and day and a half. For them, they will be there in 1 hour's time, because they have a road connectivity on the other side. And he said, why are you being so hawkish? I said, I'm not being hawkish, I'm being professionally honest with you, because of the reason that the infiltration is still taking place. And it cannot take place unless the Pakistanis bring them to their forward posts, make them see the area ahead in the night, so that they get familiar with the area. That is number one. Number two, if you recall, when Prime Minister Vajpayee went to Pakistan on the famous Lahore bus yatra,
Yes.
peace yatra,
Yes.
that was the time when the Pakistanis were moving into Kargil very audaciously and trying to occupy our forward post. If they can go up to that limit, how can you trust those Pakistanis? Never make that mistake. That is my suggestion to all my successors and the future planners.
Never trust Pakistan. Is that what you're saying, sir? Never trust Pakistan.
Never trust.
Okay. Now, was Dr. Manmohan Singh keen to demilitarize from Siachen Glacier? Did he think that's like a peace offering India could make to Pakistan for peace in Kashmir?
I don't think they were wanting to demilitarize, because Siachen is far too important and objective and strategic. It has strategic value. But they wanted to pull back a little so that to reduce the tension between the two countries. And Pakistanis were very keen, because for them it was very important. And also, if you will recall, the Pakistanis never told their own countrymen that they had lost Siachen Glacier.
Yes.
It has never been told to them. So
Yes.
they also wanted some kind of an arrangement where they could save their face.
Pakistan does not have the Siachen Glacier is the biggest truth and the lie that Pakistanis have never told their people. We are on Saltoro ridgeline beyond the glacier. Sir, should we at whatever point of time have straightened out the LOC wherever we could have LOC border, just so that we are in a stronger position? What are the guarantees that you think we want from Pakistan that we can then say, okay, we can have peace, but this is step 1, step 2, step 3 that Pakistan must do?
You see, firstly, let's take the glacier itself. Imagine when the Chinese intrusion took place in eastern Ladakh, if Pakistanis were sitting in the Siachen Glacier, from there to link up with the DBO, which the Chinese would have tried, would have been pretty easy. And we would have been in a real strategic jam. So, no objective of that kind can be ever compromise or any relaxation given in that. Number two, even if we have to make any understanding with them, where they are crossing the international border also.
Yes.
They are infiltrating across the international border also. After all, Jammu sector is international border, coming beyond the exclude. So I do not know. I have very grave doubts. I think we have to think of very many methods to make sure that those things are followed scrupulously by them before we can get to some understanding with them.
And your appreciation of Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh saying that one day POK will come back to us. You've been a part of Dogra regiment. You know the lay of the land very well. You played a very critical role. You ensured that LC fencing took place all along that 740 kilometers at the line of control. Can we take Pakistan-occupied Kashmir back from Pakistan, including all the areas?
I'll answer your questions in two parts, if you permit me.
Go on,
First,
sir.
I'll take the line of control fence. It is actually not a fence, it is an anti-infiltration system. It is an obstacle system,
Yes.
and with all the sensors put ahead of it, behind it, and the troops to guard it.
Yes.
So it was a proper system. Because my experience as the DGMO and the Vice Chief was that whatever you may do, if they cross the line of control, that they get lost into the hinterland where they had a lot of sport. At that point of time, they may not have it today. So the fence was constructed. That was one. Now coming to the other aspect of the POK. Yes, POK is our national resolution of 1994, and we must get POK sometime. POK people are also quite fed up. And they will perhaps like to join, but they will have also to make an effort. Now, there are two parts of this question which I can answer. One is, militarily we can capture POK. Yes, we can. Given the right amount of strength and the forces level available, we can phase it and take it. But there are few limitations in this. At this point in time, I'm not saying that will be 10 years down the time when India and Pakistan will not be perhaps in the same frame. Yes. We would have moved so far ahead that Pakistan won't be even visible in that frame. At that time, perhaps it can be done more easily. Right now, you know, the Chinese have interest. They are in Shaksam Valley. They have CPC,
yes.
Economic Corridor running through it. They've invested over $50–60 billion there. And Pakistan is a proxy for them. They'll safeguard Pakistan. So if we go into POK, they will also come in. That is one problem. Secondly, also there's the issue of the nuclear threshold. Will we take Pakistan to that level of nuclear threshold where they will have no choice but to react? And the third thing is internationally also today, it is not easily acceptable to change boundaries by the use of force.
Okay.
So all these factors the government will have to take. As far as the army man is concerned, given the right amount of forces, a right amount of time, they will do the job. But that the army alone doesn't fight the war. Wars are fought by the governments and with all these considerations in mind.
I will let that be the last word on this part of the show. General Vij, for joining me here on this India Today special broadcast. As always, many thanks, sir.
Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you.